no doubt, no doubt, no doubt, no doubt. Where are my most beautiful queens in the house? Where are my most beautiful queens in the house?
Once again, it's your girl Jamilah. This is the Queen's Address. Welcome into the Queendom. Today, in the building, we have a very special guest, Javier Sanchez. Thank you so much for being available out of your very busy schedule.
Man, it's
to come
my
be
pleasure.
here today.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. It was an easy yes.
Oh, I'm glad.
When I heard who I was getting invited to spend time with, that was an easy yes. So
oh, wow.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you so much. And I'm just so pleased to introduce you to everyone that watches the podcast. You are a young man who is a speaker, an author, a stand-up comic, a spoken word artist, a teacher, and, well, a champion of Black excellence. I think it's safe to say.
Yeah.
And so I'm just so thankful for you being here once again. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us, we'll go right into it. Can you tell us a little bit about your involvement with Youth to Youth and also what the program is about?
Well, yeah, I got involved with Youth to Youth as a young person. My junior going into my senior year, grew up in Columbus, Ohio, born and raised on the hilltop, and then Long and Champion, East Side, well, around right where we're at right now. And grew up in the 90s, in the crack era, got caught up in all things related to that. And because I didn't know who I was. And when you don't know who you are, you take suggestions from other people. So people that said because of the color of your skin, because of the neighborhood you live in, the family you come from, all these things, these are your only options, very limited, you know what I'm saying? And you're, in the streets or whatever. And so got connected to the Youth to Youth program by force, but not by accident. My mom forced me to go to this event, and it radically changed my life and gave me a sense of purpose, a sense of identity, you know what I'm saying? And, it changed everything for me. So Youth to Youth has been around since 1982, started right here in Columbus, Ohio, and now it's in like 37 different states and about 17 different countries. Every year they host a international conference at Ohio Dominican, 500 young people from across the country and even outside of the country coming together, finding ways to live above the circumstances. And so radically changed my life, and so I continue to work. I worked for them for a long time, here and abroad, and continue to work with them to this day. I have a 23-year-old son and a 17-year-old, 19-year-old daughter. I just took 2 years over a 19-year-old daughter. I'm trying to keep them, babies.
Go by
they
like
just
minutes.
go.
Yeah.
And they both went through the program and had phenomenal experiences. And so, like I said, to this day, they're still going and doing incredible things for our community and for communities around the country and around the world.
Absolutely. I'm so glad.
Mm-hmm.
And you are the CEO of Reach Communications.
Yeah.
And can you tell us a little bit about what Reach Communications is?
Reaching excellence in attitude, character, and health. We're a health and wellness marketing firm. So we're a marketing firm, essentially. Mm-hmm. But we don't do food, we don't do fashion, health and beauty products, entertainment. We did a lot in the entertainment in the early years, but kind of shifted. Some of the things we were getting involved in kind of were counter to my core values. So we shifted to this space and place where all our campaigns and initiatives and projects we work on are focused on health and wellness, particularly for Black and brown communities. Mm-hmm. And so like right now we're on the verge of launching a major violence prevention campaign in partnership with the City of Columbus Department of Neighborhoods, My Brother's Keeper. We're doing a mental health campaign in South Africa. We're doing an opioid campaign in California. We're doing a campaign for incarcerated children of incarcerated parents in Allegheny County, Pittsburgh. We're doing a violence prevention campaign in Philadelphia. We're about to do a campaign for families of addicts in Cuyahoga County, Cleveland area. So we stay busy in that space. We call it, our goal is to move people from inspiration to action to outcomes. We want to see outcomes. We want to see not climate change where we're just creating sunny days for people by doing a cool event or having a cool website, but we want to do culture change where we're changing their customs. We're changing rituals. We're changing language around how we speak about these topics, and we're changing traditions, what we're passing down to our children.
Exactly.
So I've been doing it. Started my company in 2007. Bumped my head a ton of times as I built the business. Didn't do it alone. Anybody that tells you they're self-made, to me, is either lying, forgetful, or inconsiderate.
Listen, come on now.
And so, it took a lot of help to get to where we're at now. And I'm still learning, still growing, but really thankful for the opportunities we've had to impact lives around the world.
Absolutely. We're so grateful for you and what you do with the youth around here. And so wanted to switch gears for a minute, and I wanted to talk about your books.
Yeah.
Okay. You are a successful author,
Yeah.
and I want to talk a little bit about Look in My Mirror and From This Moment On.
Yeah.
Both books seem to have different focuses.
Yeah.
And so can you talk a little bit about the impact and the difference for the readers out here who's going to go and grab your book?
For sure. Look in My Mirror was the first book I wrote when my daughter was about 3 or 4 years old. I remember one day her mother was getting her ready in the morning, and she came running to me. When her mom finished getting her all dressed up and everything, she came running to me, and she stood there waiting for me to notice her. And I'm on my laptop, and working. You know what I'm saying? Working. And I saw her standing there, and hey,
she's
baby.
Like, I'm ready.
Right. Notice me.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's the vibe I got. Notice me. And I realized in that moment, and I'm a good dad, but in that moment I didn't notice her, right? And something just stirred in my spirit. I was like, if you don't notice her, somebody else will.
Come on now.
That's what came into my spirit. Listen. If you don't notice your daughter, somebody else will. And so I realized that me and a lot of other fathers, we don't have the language to speak life into our children or our daughters, And so I wrote a script for myself called Look in My Mirror. And so every page is a father and daughter looking in the mirror together. Oh, wow. And the father telling the daughter what he sees in her reflection, how intelligent she is, how talented she is, how beautiful she is, how creative she is. All these things we as fathers have to say to our daughters, because if we don't say it, somebody else will. And it won't be our first choice.
Absolutely.
So wrote that book and released it, but I really wrote it for myself, but it's had an impact on countless number of fathers and daughters around the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's been a ride, and it's been a blessing to see what that book has been able to do. I have grown now, because I think that book came out in 2007 or 2008. Now I have adult women that will approach me and say, my father read your book to me when I was little. Oh, wow. And
that
thank
has to
you.
Be like all the feels.
So that's a blessing. I say it didn't come from me, it came through me.
Yes.
So and then a few years ago, I wrote a book in partnership with Marshall Shorts, who is he's from Cleveland. He lives here in Columbus, but he's a graphic designer and an artist and a creative, and we collaborated to create this book called From This Moment On, Personal Reminders for Massive Success at Home, at Work, at School, and in the Shower. And it's basically a roadmap for artists, activists, entrepreneurs, and young people on how to add process to your passion A lot of times as artists, as activists, as entrepreneurs, as young people, we step into our purpose really high on passion, low on process, right? And we get burnt out. A lot of artists get burnt out. A lot of entrepreneurs bottom out and go into debt or go out of business. And a lot of activists really get burnt out, especially nowadays.
Yeah.
Because there's process that has to go along with your passion. For me, I mean, I went bankrupt. When I started my company 3 years later, I was bankrupt, literally filed for bankruptcy because I had all the passion in the world. I didn't have the process. I wasn't asking for help.
Right.
Because on social media and, the facade was, this dude got it going on. He's traveling all over the world. He's speaking here. He's performing here. He's doing all this. He's big time.
I think you got it going on.
Yeah. He's big time because look at all the celebrities he's hanging out with. And I'm bleeding money. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't know about registering my company with the city or, I didn't know. I remember the first year I was in business, I called my accountant, around the end of March, like, I need to file my business taxes. He's like, no, you needed to file them a month ago because business taxes you file March 15th. Personal taxes you file April 15th.
Yeah.
I didn't know, I don't know. Invoice? What? I don't know.
Right.
I don't know about I didn't, all the, the process stuff.
Right.
Because I hadn't asked.
Right.
Because I took off so quick.
Creatives want to create.
Yeah. And I kind of, because of some circumstances, the situation, I kind of skyrocketed in terms of quote unquote success. And I didn't have time to catch up with all the hype and really figure this out. And it looked good on the exterior, so I figured it must be good. And it really wasn't. You know what I'm saying? And so really a lot of lessons that I learned. So that's what the From This Moment On book is about. And it's been a blessing to me and to, again, countless other people that have had a chance to work through it.
Absolutely.
So,
we're grateful for all your work.
Yeah.
Those of us who enjoy it. And so I wanted to ask you, how do you use art and spoken word tradition to convey messages of hope and empowerment to the youth? You work with the youth a lot, and I was just curious about that.
So I'm an MC at heart.
Sir.
Yeah. I've been
check mic 1 2. Yes.
I've been rapping since elementary school. It's just that's what I knew, and so I was an MC for years, and I'm hip hop to my core. I tell you, I don't have hip hop running through my veins. I got veins running through my hip hop. That's how serious I am about this.
Come on now, I love it.
But when I started touring and getting invited to perform and speak with young people, this was in the early 2000s. What I figured out was that it didn't matter how hot the beat was that I produced, or not. Well, I didn't produce, that my producers produced. It didn't matter how fire my lyrics were. If they didn't have the radio, or at that time 106 in Park, MTV, if those people weren't telling them to listen to it, didn't matter how hot the beat was or how fire my lyrics were, they weren't going to move, right? So then somebody schooled me, like, just use somebody's instrumental that they know. And I'm like, okay, I can use an instrumental they've heard, but they're not going to hear what I'm saying.
Right.
So then around that time, I would keep that for myself. My hip hop, I wouldn't use it with young people. I would stick to the jokes or whatever, because I'm a comic too. Then Def Poetry Jam. Remember that? Russell Simmons, Yassine Bey, Mos Def at the time. And I was like, oh, wait. I can take
record scratch?
I can take the rhyme scheme and the cadence out of my raps and slow it down and take the beat away and just do
Come
this
on
as spoken
now.
word.
Stop playing with
And
him.
so I took all my lyrics and got rid of the beat and just figured out how to perform them as poems, spoken word pieces. And that changed the whole game and took it to another level. I always make the joke, I used to be a hip MC. When you turn 30 and you don't have a record deal, you become a poet.
I know, right?
But
that's what I keep hearing.
Yeah. So, but I don't feel like that's a downgrade. For me, it was an upgrade.
Absolutely.
Because rap started in poetry. I mean, if you do if you know your history,
It's
where
rhyming,
where it started. Its roots were in spoken word, not the other way around.
I agree. We just had Mixmaster Ice on the show, and he said hip hop is rooted in youth. It's like a rebellion, and so when we become wise, we become a sage. To your point, the spoken word seems more authentic to the wisdom of a grown man versus a young boy coming up with the boombox or the spray paint and and so with the culture, we love the cultures in us. We're the hip hop generation,
right.
But to mature, I totally feel you because like spoken word, I've been moved to tears. But I've been moved to tears too, listening to some Nas songs. And so it's still poetry in any form, whether you got a beat or not, or it's just stand up bass, like the boy in Love Jones.
Oh
So it's just amazing. Spoken word, the impact of your spoken word, is really impressive, and you've done so many great things. And so I just wanted to switch gears and go into you shot a feature film.
Yes.
So shooting a feature film is so impressive, but shooting one in 19 days?
Yes.
With a budget of just $10,000.
Yes.
It's incredible.
Right.
Can you talk about your experience and just talk to
sure.
You wrote it and you produced it also, correct?
Yes. How
does one do that?
Well, again, by force, but not by accident.
Okay.
I don't think anything happens by accident. So, I've been working in the film industry for years as what's called a script doctor. So I'll punch up scripts, or I'll do notes or rewrites or different things. But I've always considered myself a fugitive, in that I'm not part of the Writers Guild. Like, I'm not on strike right now. I've always worked outside of the system. When I say fugitive, it means
you're revolutionary.
I refuse to comply.
Right.
I refuse to comply, and I refuse to get caught. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not going to work within your system. I'm going to work outside the system, but I still have to work with other people that are in the system. So, and I was working with the studio. They wanted to produce a screenplay that I had written, and we're going through the motions. They showed me the budget they had for it. I didn't think that screenplay could fit into the budget because it wasn't a $10,000 budget, but it was a modest budget. So while we were kind of waiting, because a lot of Hollywood is a waiting game. I tell people, Steven Spielberg waited 13 years. He shopped Schindler's List for 13 years. Nobody would pick it up.
Nobody would touch it.
And this is when Steven Spielberg was Steven
Spielberg,
Spielberg, right? He wasn't a young nobody trying to make it. He was already had done all the greats, E.T., Color Purple, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and he can't get any studio to bite on Schindler's List, which is regarded one of the top 100 films ever made.
Right.
And so during the waiting game, I looked at the budget again. I was like, I'm going to write a script that fits into that budget. And so I knew I had to cut down on like the number of characters. I knew I had to cut down on the number of scenes, scene changes. I had to cut down on a lot of those things, and it would have to be a dialogue-driven film, not an action-driven film.
Right.
And so I wrote this script, and I knew I wanted to write a story about a moment in Black history that most people weren't aware of. and I was trying to figure out, okay, so what is that moment? And I was in St. Louis at a bookstore in the airport. I had a show in St. Louis, and I just go to the bookstore, not looking for anything, but I happened to see a book called Blood at the Root. And I saw on the spine, it said Blood at the Root, a story of ethnic cleansing in America. I was like, what?
Okay.
So I pull it out and I read the back and I start flipping through it, and I started shaking because I couldn't believe. I'm like, what is this?
Oh, wow.
And so in I think it was 1925, a woman in Forsyth County, Georgia, a white woman, raped and murdered. Of course, we know the drill. 3 black men get arrested. It was actually 1912. Now that I think about it, the 3 black men get arrested, and they all get lynched, right? And then the Klan had the taste for blood, so they go and start. At that time, the population was about 5,000, and 1,000 of them were black in Cummings, Georgia, Forsyth County, and went to every door. You got to go. If you don't move, you're gonna get moved. And within about 2 or 3 weeks, drove the entire black population out of Cummings, Georgia. They left their homes, they left their land, they left their animals. There was farms. They left everything. And from 1912 to 1987, the black population in Cummings, Georgia was 0, right?
Wow. Okay.
And in that time, the state took over the property, and that property is now worth millions of dollars. It's one of the most valuable property in the country. You have Fortune 500 companies that now own that property and have built massive fortunes on stolen land, right? Which is, again, not a new story, right? In 1987, a man moved from from Oakland to the area, heard about what had happened, and decided he wanted to organize a global, or not a global, he wanted to organize a March for Peace, Brotherhood March for Peace, to celebrate the Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday being declared a national holiday. And they were going to do this march to the courthouse in Cummings, Georgia. And about 200 folks from like the Atlanta area, because it's really a suburb of Atlanta, bust in. They went to Cummings, and they were going to do this peaceful march, Brotherhood March for Peace. They were met by over 2,000 Klansmen.
Oh my goodness.
And chased out. They did not have a successful march, right? Throwing rocks and bricks and sticks and telling them to get out of there. And that made national news. And this happened in 1987.
Right.
And
this
I don't
even
even
1937.
I was in middle school, and I don't remember it, but made national news. And so the next week, they did a second Brotherhood March for Peace, and now Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton, everybody, and over 20,000 people showed up, along with the National Guard and everybody, to keep everything cool.
Right.
And they did a march a week later, a successful march. They started a coalition, a committee to talk about the issue, and absolutely nothing came of it. But Oprah even went and did an episode of her show. She had only been on the air like 6 months at the time.
Oh, wow.
She went down there and did an episode of her show, all white audience, and she just wanted to hear from the folks in Cummings, like, why you do not want black people living in your community. And they shared, happily shared with her. Yeah. And she said to her staff, like, we can't stay here tonight. We have to leave. We're not safe here. And they left. And so we shot a film about what happened. It's a fictional story about what happened between the first march and the second march. And we actually made it, instead of a week apart, we said a month apart, and how the Klan tried to stop the second march from happening. But it's a fictional story. Based on a true story.
But you got it done.
But we got it done.
Yeah.
We wanted to bring attention to a situation and an event and experience in our country that most people weren't even aware of. And so I wrote this script, and then the whole deal fell through with the studio, but I had a script that I knew. I was like, okay,
it's yours. Yeah.
I worked too hard and I care too much about this story. I remember when I got the email, and I emailed them back. I'm like, thank you. Next email you're going to get from me is going to be an invitation to the premiere of this film.
Come on now. Stop
watch me
playing
figure
with
this out.
him.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I said, I've never worked on a micro budget film before. All the films that I've worked on or been a part of are, 7-8 figure films. But I said, I'm going to go ahead and do this. So I reached out to CCAD and student filmmakers. I said, anybody want to be a part of a feature film project? Because most people in Columbus do like shorts. I'm like, you want to do a feature? And these kids are like, yeah. So, and anybody that read the script said, what do I need to do? And so we did a casting call and shot this script in 19 days for $10,000, which basically paid for the food. I was like, I can't pay y'all, but I can feed y'all. I'm going to feed y'all really well. You're going to eat really well while you're on this set. So we shot it and we released it on, streaming because I care. And shortly thereafter, you had George Floyd, and you had the racial reckoning that was happening in our country, and COVID and everything. And I was like, we just got to get this out so people can see it. So we built a website that has a discussion guide on it, because it's not a movie you just want to watch and just say, okay, let me go back to doing whatever. It needs to be talked about.
Activate.
It needs to, it needs to be processed. It needs to be, thought through, and so we've gotten a lot of traction from it. And I just create with not the expectation of a financial return.
Right.
I just want it.
It's a labor of love.
Yeah, my one thing is impact.
Right.
Is what I'm doing impacting, and that's all I care about.
That part.
Yes,
sir. Absolutely. And I wanted to go into. I watched your TED Talk. And I was so moved.
Oh, wow.
And I just wanted to know, what was your experience like?
Yeah.
Doing an actual TED Talk.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Well, I'm assuming I've done two, actually. One here in Columbus and one in the Cayman Islands.
The one in Columbus.
Oh, the one in Columbus.
Yeah.
Okay. That was interesting, because I had spoken at a youth conference, and some of the seniors at the conference, they said, our senior project is we want to organize a TED Talk, and would you be interested in speaking at it? And so I said, absolutely. And so to see young people take ownership of because it's not easy to put on a TED Talk, and it was an official TED Talk. I know what it takes to put on a TED Talk, and
it's work.
It's a lot of work, and for these young people to put in the work to make it happen, I was just so proud of them.
Yeah.
And so that in and of itself was what was amazing to me about it, is because for them, not doing it was not an option, and just the audacity and to use that in a positive way. It always tends to have a negative connotation, but a daring, shameless boldness. That's what blew me away. And so, I loved it.
It was a good experience.
Well,
I enjoyed it, and it was just really good to kind of see just that side. You are passionate about working with the youth, and sometimes people be like, they'll say, well, they sometimes kids have to bump their head or have it hard, and you actually care.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And you really your focus is razor sharp with the youth and the programs that you involve yourself with.
Yeah.
And you're very, very careful.
Yeah.
With, how you go about things. And it makes me want to ask you my next question.
Okay.
I don't know if it's personal, if it's a personal question, but I see something.
Okay.
I'm an empath.
Uh-huh.
And I have to ask you, when did you know that you were different?
Huh.
When was the aha moment? Like, you know what? I might not be like everybody sitting in this row at class.
Right. Yeah.
When did it hit you? You know what I'm asking you.
Yeah. I remember. I do remember.
Yeah. Let's talk about it.
So I remember in 7th grade.
Okay.
We had to do a book report, and then I went to Monroe, traditional middle school, whatever. Go Eagles. Well, they went because they're not even here anymore. But I went to Monroe, and then in 7th grade, we had to do this book report on a biography. And part of the experience that we had to do was the teacher had us, she set it up like she was interviewing us as that person, right? As that person. And so we we had, we got assigned our day and our time or whatever, and there'd be like 3 or 4 of us on the stage or, in the front of the class. And we had to answer questions that she would ask, but answer as if we were that person. So I happened to read the biography of Harry Houdini, the magician, the escape artist.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so I knew I had to do this thing where I was going to have to answer these questions. And she told us what the questions were going to be. And I said, you know what? I know the answers to the questions, but I'm going to do an escape artist trick. I'm going to escape from I told my mom, I was like, I want to escape from a safe. Can we get a safe? And I'm an idiot. I don't know. You can't just get a safe, like a big giant metal safe. I'm thinking I can figure out how to escape from a safe. She's like, no, you can't. But how about if you do it with like a cardboard box and build a safe and, just pretend like it, just make it out of a cardboard. So that's what I did. I built this safe out of a cardboard box and I wrapped it. And she said, I said, can we,
right.
yeah, I said, we can't, what about the chains? And she's like, well, use rope. You can't really use chains. And so I built this contraption and I had when it came time and I showed up, I remember we didn't have school on a Monday for it was a holiday. And then or maybe it was a teacher conference day or something.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, I could get into the building on Monday because staff was there. And so my mom took me to school that day, and I brought this big thing and my teachers, and she's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I want to escape from this, because she knew I did Harry Houdini. I want to do an escape trick.
Right.
And so I did that, and no other student, everybody else just showed up in their school clothes, you know, and just did the interview as themselves, intern, I wanted to do it, and everybody just thought it was so wild. And I escaped from the box, and I had this big other piece of cardboard. I took I built the safe, and then I took a refrigerator box and cut it open so I could have almost like a shield, something to hide behind to escape from the thing from. And I painted it blue with stars all over it. And, I just went over and above and beyond just because it was like a chance to put on a show, you know what I'm saying? And I saw the reaction from that. And I enjoyed that. And I said, hey, but, so that was my first time, but where I like took ownership. But
Yeah.
it honestly, it started in elementary school, and it's almost like taboo to say what I'm about to say, but I mean, you understand why.
Yeah.
Time wise, it didn't matter. So we didn't have cable or anything. We had I do stand-up comedy, right? And so we had a cassette tape of Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby himself was the show, and listened to it all the time, and I had it memorized. And so when my mom and dad would have friends over, she would make me perform. They would make me perform Bill Cosby jokes.
Oh, wow.
In front of their
company
adults,
and
in front of their
friends
company.
Oh, wow.
And I'm this little, 8, 9, 10-year-old doing these Bill Cosby jokes and getting a laugh. And so that's where the seed was planted. Like, oh, I like this. I like performing. I like entertaining. I like when people have a good time. And so that happened in elementary school. And then I had this opportunity in middle school where I put on a magic show an escape trick show. And so that's where that seed came from, where I could impact people and make people say, whoa, I like the idea of being
The
able
reaction.
to make, the reaction.
Yeah.
And so, I tell people, like, doing comedy or even spoken word poetry is like doing a magic trick, because a magic trick is making something appear or disappear, making something happen that catches you off guard.
Right.
That's what a magic trick is.
Right.
When you make something happen that you don't see coming. That's what a joke is. A joke is saying something, and that's what a really powerful line in a spoken word poetry piece is saying something that the normal audience didn't see coming, or a joke. There's a reason why why you laugh at a joke is because what they say you didn't see coming. You know what I'm saying? So I tell this joke.
It's that element.
The element of surprise.
Right.
You laugh because you didn't see it coming. So I tell one of my jokes that is like one of my go-tos. My son, when he was like 5 years old, I wanted him to understand who he was. So and this is a true story. I was like, I said, okay, Mateo, your mom is black, daddy's Latino, you're black and Latino. He said, I'm not black. I said, what are you talking about? He said, I'm not black, I'm brown. I was like, nah, dude, not your skin. I'm talking about like your inside, like who you are. Your mom is black, you're black. He said, mommy's not black. I said, what do you mean mommy's not black? He said, mommy's light brown. I was like, dude.
Here we go. Yeah.
No.
Here we go.
You're not getting it, bro. I was like, I'm going to help you figure it out. I said, but hold on, man. I said, if mommy is light brown, what does that make daddy? He said, you're dark white.
Dark white.
Right. See that? You didn't see that coming.
Not at all.
Right? That's
Not at all. Children
that's
have
the surprise. That's the
oh my
magic
gosh.
of a joke. The magic of a joke is them saying something you don't see coming, and the response is laughter.
Right.
The magic of a bar in a poetry piece is saying something that you don't see coming, and the response is, or ooh, or rewind. If you've ever been to a poetry, you got to why do they say rewind at a poetry thing? Because they're like, I did not know that was going to be said. I need you to say it over. So it started me doing Bill Cosby jokes, and the rest is history. Yeah.
And you said, okay, I'm different. Yeah. I'm different.
Yeah.
And I see it, and I'm so thankful for you sharing your gifts.
Yeah.
Because you're just such a talented performer, writer.
Yeah.
And I'm just so thankful that you could be available
Absolutely
on the show today. So once again, thank you.
I appreciate
for
it.
coming on to the Queen's Address. And we'll see you next time. Peace, King. Peace, Queens. Catch you later.